Could a future Labour government build a generation of new towns? That is what Keir Starmer says he'd do if he was Prime Minister in order to deliver the hundreds of thousands of new homes which Labour say needs to be built. We're joined by Katie Locke, Director of Communities at the Town and Country Planning Association, a campaigning charity, and David Bean, who speaks for the Countryside Alliance. Katie, first of all, morning to you.
Good morning.
Where should these new towns be built?
Well, firstly, we're delighted that Labour is committed to a new generation of new towns. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to tackle our housing crisis. When we're talking about where, we need a national conversation about that. We need a national spatial plan to look at where housing and growth needs are, where our infrastructure is, where there's going to be enough water for people to turn the taps on.
That's where the problem starts, isn't it? Which is the economists will say to you, we need them down south. We need them next to the growing cities, the Milton Keyneses, the Cambridges. Other people say, no, levelling up means we need them all over the country.
We need that strategic approach. It needs to be across the country. Yes, there are areas of need in the southeast, but there are also in the north of the country and in the Midlands.
And when we use that phrase, new towns, it might sound like just an obvious way of saying a town that's new. It means something very specific in legal terms, doesn't it?
It does. For us, it's a new town that's delivered using the New Towns Act, which is a specific piece of legislation enabling new town development corporations to deliver new towns.
And development corporation means more powers for that corporation and rather less for local people who might wish to object to new housing.
It has traditionally, so it provides the powers for those corporations to deliver at speed and take a holistic view to delivering infrastructure and getting the finances and resources in place. But that's why it's essential that Labour learns the lessons from the previous New Towns programme and really brings local people along with them in the process.
Talking of which, let's bring in David Bean from the Countryside Alliance. Do you welcome what you're hearing, David?
From what we know so far, I would cautiously welcome these proposals. They are looking at focusing on the fringes of existing urban developments, which is fine as far as it goes, and we know the degree of housing need that there is in such areas. But I do think that the plans risk overlooking the real need that also exists for housing in explicitly rural areas, which it doesn't appear from what we know so far that this proposal is going to touch.
But do you worry that Labour appears to be prepared to build on the green belt? They're using a phrase, grey belt, which I confess I haven't heard before, but seems to suggest bits of the green belt that are, well, not that green.
Well, by grey belt, they seem to be referring to what is essentially surplus land on the fringes of urban areas. So you're talking about, for example, large-scale retail developments that may be fading out of use given changes in consumer trends and the abilities of the internet, etc. They are also talking about explicitly preventing development on protected land, which the green belt would come under. Now, we're not necessarily opposed to all development on green belt land if it's the right development in the right place. But the devil will, as always, be in the detail.
Do you see fights ahead, David?
Not necessarily. I mean, I can certainly see a scenario where local people's wishes and views as to what happens locally conflict with plans that are put together on really any level of government, even be it potentially at the local government level. But ultimately, there does have to be a partnership approach between local communities and local authorities, and indeed national government, to secure the housing that the UK so desperately needs.
Well, let's bring Katie back in. Hasn't this Conservative government discovered that talking about new homes is the easy bit? As soon as you try and do it, local councils oppose you, local communities oppose you, and again, the Conservatives have had to water down promises and targets.
That's about not bringing people along with you. There's a significant issue about lack of trust in planning and housing delivery, and that's due to the kind of places which have been delivered. And the New Towns approach provides an opportunity to not only say we're going to deliver homes, but we can deliver jobs, we can deliver the social and environmental infrastructure that are necessary to make these places last.
Brief final thought. How do you bring people with you? Because isn't there a conflict between someone who's got a nice home and doesn't want another one built near them, and those people are desperate for themselves, for their children, for their grandchildren, to get that new home?
You have an honest, transparent process to identifying need and location. And if the right management and finances of new towns, you can prove how you can look after, how you can finance these assets and how you can look after these places in the long term to be high quality.
Katie Locke, Director of Communities at the Town and Country Planning Association. David Bean from the Countryside Alliance. Thanks.